Hey everybody, just a bit of a walkthrough on my 1982 EX Lancer GSL model. This thing I picked up about a year ago for $200 and haven't done too much work on it, but as you can see we've stripped it out to a bit of a bare shell. All the doors are stacked in the corner and guards and boot and bonnet and whatnot. But yeah, quick rundown. We're going full Nissan front suspension, get a bit of steering lock happening for drifting. I've got a 4G63 T motor out of a VR4, so a 6-bolt. Probably run a Sigma or L200 gearbox for now because they're cheap and bolt directly up to it, but it won't last. And in the rear we're doing the full Nissan diff and suspension and subframe as well, so there's a fair bit going on, but we'll go more into depth in a second. On the exterior we're planning to do some fiberglass flares of some sort, but that will be one of the last things to happen once all the wheels and suspension everything's done. And a bit of a ducktail boot wing and possibly side skirts, we'll see. And we might go for a full, instead of just a bolt-on flare on the front, we might go for a full fiberglass guard. My mate John Atwood has John Atwood Customs, which do these fine fiberglass products, so he's willing to help me create something for this anyway. It's going to be a one-off, and then try get a bit of a turbo front bumper to mould off as well. And yeah, she's a big project. She's got a bit of rust to do, obviously paint, undersealing. There's a lot happening, so we'll just keep everyone updated as we're working on it. But yeah, this is a bit of a first for me trying to do these videos, so any positive feedback or constructive feedback is much appreciated. Here's the dash that we've got mounted in here. The original dash was quite buggered, so it got thrown in the rubbish. But this is fiberglass moulded off a S15 dash, and the center console too. But this is done by John Atwood Customs. Bloody good job he's done. But yeah, we always knew it was going to be too wide, so I've had to cut down the sides, which is, that sort of shows how much I had to cut off, not very much. And then at the front here, I had to cut off about that much. So I just used a bit of cardboard, a Vivid, some tape, made a stencil because the window's out anyway. Cut the cardboard to shape, laid it on there, cut the fiberglass to shape, and it fitted in there pretty well. Just trimmed a bit out for the steering column too. But yeah, pretty stoked with how that looks in there. And we'll tidy up these sides. We'll trim those bits I cut down and fiberglass them back on and smooth it all off and all the rest. So here we have in the engine bay Nissan Silvia S13 SR20 subframe, and it already had the rack shifted forward, which I'm not exactly a fan of, but I cut and modified it to suit the Lancer. But the steering rack's from a C34 Laurel, so it doesn't match up to the Silvia mounts very well, so I had to hack out the mount just to fit it. But after further measurements, I want an RB mount because the engine mount will be out here, which suits better for a 4G63 to be mounted rear-wheel drive. And so this, we'll call it the prototype. It's going to get thrown out, but it's there for now. And obviously this is the original Mitsubishi steering shaft, so not sure exactly what we're going to do there, but we'll try figure out whether we just use a whole Nissan shaft and ditch the Mitsi one, or match Nissan to Mitsi, or whatever works, because originally this had a steering box which mounted there, so it's completely different to the original. And we've got a S14 strut in there with no spring, obviously, S14 hub and R33 lower arm with, that's the original Mitsubishi caster rod, which lined up with one hole. But yeah, it's all a bit of trial and error for now, and obviously 4-star on the front as well. But we may go to, I've got some R32 lower arms, so slightly shorter than these, and then we can put GK Tech, make that whatever the thing is that goes, bolts from the ball joint and the tie rod and spaces them out and puts your lower arm down, and you can reverse it without basically without having to cut and modify anything. It's like a roll center adjuster, I think they call it, but probably better off to use the shorter lower arm for that. Otherwise we might end up with too much camber, if that is a thing. But yeah, obviously in the market for a set of adjustees, front and rear. Just haven't really got around to it. And we'll start making our other cross member when we get a welder back in here. Just a quick look at the rear end we've got for this car. This is a R200 subframe from a Nissan Silvia S14. We've got adjustable arms here. These are actually from an S13, so this one in here doesn't quite fit properly. It's got need to fabricate a spacer up in there. Other than that, she'll be mint. And still running the 4-stud brakes, because I have a few 4-stud 14-inch wheels, and smaller brakes, smaller wheels, smaller tyres, easier to skid. We're not going for big horsepower or anything, we're just going to have fun. And yeah, she is got mint paint underneath all the dust. It's just been collecting shit while I've been cutting stuff out in here. But the boot floor is gone, and this is where the rear seat was. All that's been cut out to fit that subframe, and I sort of did it slowly, just bit by bit, cutting everything out until I got to the point where I realised I had to cut the whole lot out. Shift this out of the way. You can sort of see it's only a rough cut at the moment, and once we get things figured out, I'll do a nice tubbed wheel arch through there, and I'll have to, this is where the original strut or shock absorber mounted, and the springs mounted there on the solid axle. So all of that might be easier to see on that side. That will get cut out, and we'll get a turret for a top hat and put a S13 or S14 suspension in there, and then tie it all into the roll cage once it's done, and put some plates on here and make a rear chassis for that subframe to mount on. Bit of work involved, but we'll get there eventually.